Thanks to the elets team for giving us this opportunity. I know for the last day and a half, you talked a lot about BFSI and technology and the emerging technologies that's affecting the BFSI industry as a whole, the innovation that's happening. My talk is a little bit different, changing the tone a bit here. Fintech Valley, why that? Before I get, how many have heard of Fintech Valley, why that? Well, not so many, so I think my talk will be useful. So what is Fintech Valley, why that? Before we talk about that, I wanted to set some context here about the environment that's in AP state right now that is affecting how we are developing the Fintech Valley website. So if you think about the new state of Andhra Pradesh that was formed about 4 years ago, now it's playing the growth leader role in spearheading India's digital transformation. Why do I say that? If you think about the ease of doing business, I think we're ranked number 1 again this year. Right? And we are top 3 among foreign direct investment. And we have a growth rate that is larger than the national average. And the fourth one is really important here. The vision of our Honorable CM is to have a completely digital enabled state. What that means is that every household digitally connected to the government services as well as to the industry and to the financial institutions. So as part of that, AP Fiber Corporation, that's a government initiative, that's creating the network to connect all the households in AP through a fiber network. The goal is to, by the end of next year, 80% of the state will be connected. And the remaining 20%, which is the last mile, we're partnering with Google to actually do this in a Wi-Fi way, without any fiber. Right? And not to mention Amravati, the greenfield capital that's being developed. So there's a lot of investment and development that's happening in the state of AP, which is the context for what we're talking about, the Fintech Valley. What is Fintech Valley? So the vision is for creating a self-sustainable ecosystem that brings all the players in the fintech world, startups, academic institutions, banking and financial institutions, and create an environment where they can exchange ideas and enable the growth in this space. So to execute on it, Fintech Valley has a 5M strategy that we are implementing. The first of this, again, most of you will probably agree with me, if you're a corporate or a startup, today the biggest challenge is access to the right talent. That's the biggest challenge that most of the corporations are facing. What we are trying to do is partner with academic institutions. There is a raw horsepower and the talent that's in the state in terms of graduating engineers and the technology professionals. But there is a gap between what they come out of the college with and what the industry is expecting. So we're partnering with corporations and the academic institutions to develop training models that industry is actually training the professionals. So nowadays, a lot of the training happens post-recruitment for most of the institutions. They go to the campus or hire recent graduates, and then the first few months actually is invested in training them to contribute and do the work. Right? So the idea is to actually get that upfront, partner with academic institutions, and get that training happen before the graduation itself, so that when the recruiting happens, they are ready to hit the ground running. And the second M is most of the startups in the fintech space right now need money to sort of as a seed capital or incubation growth capital. Right? The state of AP has created a fund which they are partnering with private investors as well in creating a fund of funds to provide access to the capital. And then the third one is the market access. Right? So the government, when I mentioned all the digitization work that's happening in the state of AP, government itself can provide a big access to the fintech. So if we have the initiative of Less Cash Budget, which we're partnering with Visa to do that, as well as we have about 20 plus BSI partners, most of them are in this room, where we work with them to provide access and connection between the startups and as well as the startups, for them to grow along with money and manpower. What they need is a market, right, to test their solutions, to grow them. So that's the market access. And mentorship and meetups, right? So the other two things that they need is a platform, conferences like this, events that they can attend, where they learn about what's happening in the marketplace, as well as get guidance and the advice that they need from the industry. So those five sort of are the ecosystem enablers that we are building to achieve that vision of creating the Fintech Valley. Who are our key partners? We have mentioned students are a big part of this. The talent development, getting them employment, as well as having them exposed to what are the emerging technologies and problems. So we do a lot of workshops, hackathons as part of particularly in AI, ML, blockchain, some of the emerging technologies. Right? And then the corporates and startups I was talking about, those are key to actually bring all of this, hiring the students as well as developing the solutions that the BFSI is looking to integrate. They have a lot of need for innovation in their existing systems. So to create those, we have accelerators and innovation centers that startups are being guided, where the partners and the guiding forces are from the corporate. So what does a startup get, right? International exposure through the events that we were talking about, access to infrastructure, monetary support, access to the talent pool that I just mentioned. Similarly for a corporate, right? Why do they want to engage? So here is a place, it's sort of a breeding ground of innovation, where they can understand what each startup is doing, what are their ideas. There are different stages. Some of them are early stage, some of them are in growth stage with a product already available that they can integrate. And they can do the investment and build the capabilities that they need, which they may or may not be able to do internally. And academia, right? So again, I've been talking, as part of this role, I've been talking to a lot of vice chancellors from universities, faculty, right? They have the desire to get their students ready for the industry, right? But they don't know how, because their curriculum is designed some years ago. They don't really know how to actually, change that with rapidly changing technology. Right? That's where these partnerships and R&D centers from the corporates help them. So try and get all of that training, post-recruiting training pushed into the universities as much as possible, so that you have the workforce that is ready to start their jobs on day one. What are some of the highlights we have? So this initiative is about 2 years old now. We've had great success in a couple of projects that we've taken up. One of them is our use case repository. What we have done as part of that is work with about 20 or so of our BFSI partners, worked with them very closely, and created a use case repository that's about 100 use cases. These are all the problem statements, specific use challenges that they are facing as organizations, and we have that repository, and we use that to conduct hackathons, startup challenges, to identify and get the solutions out in the market. So we've used that to conduct few hackathons and innovation challenges, and we also have what's called an accelerator that we did with partnering with ICICI Bank and Mahindra Finance, where we selected about 8 finalists cohort where they did a 12-month pilot projects with the partners, where they got exposure to the market as well as demonstrate their product and get the guidance from the mentors working out of the Fintech Valley. A few highlights of the accelerator. It's a 12-week resident program, and they have access and support from the investor network as well as the corporate partners. Right? And then the whole thing culminated in a demo day where they pitched their product and the solutions that they developed to the corporates that were present. One other thing that I will touch upon before opening up for questions is Vizag Fintech Festival. This is our flagship event that we are planning for October. So I formally invite all of you to attend. It's October 22nd to 26th. It's a 4-day event which is going to be covering some of the key themes that are in the fintech space, the bank tech, all the digital payments, as well as consumer lending, also financial inclusion, insure tech. So these are the high-level themes. We also included what we're calling a GovTech, which is, like I mentioned, AP is doing absorbing a lot of innovation and emerging technologies that are happening in terms of blockchain implementation, cyber security, and also AI and ML, so that the real-time governance that AP State and our Honorable CM, you might have seen his dashboard that's available on Google. You can look for it. It has about 200 KPIs that are constantly monitored, which range from efficiency of schools functioning, water resources, and which are enabled by IoT and real-time monitoring. As part of the event, we have the conference is for the 2 days, on 23rd and 24th, and the 25th is demo day. I will talk more about what the demo day is. This high-level agenda is still being built, but it's coming out well together with a lot of prominent speakers that we're reaching out to. One of the key things that we're doing for this FinTech Festival is a $1 billion global challenge. This is what, as part of this challenge, we are planning to select about 20-25 startups globally who will come to Vizag for that conference. And that's the demo day, a full day of presentations where we'll have a number of global investors to assess the solutions. Government is funding this, but the private investors can also add on any additional investment that they want to do. The 3 tracks that we are focusing on for the challenge is agri-tech, emerging technologies, and fintech. And as part of the challenge, we are doing global roadshows where in key fintech destinations like London, Paris, Tel Aviv, Hong Kong, and San Francisco and New York, where we'll locally select startups and invite them as a finalist. So that challenge is going on. So I encourage all the startups that you've been associated with to take part. That's about Fintech Valley in a short version of it. I can take a few questions.
Regarding the hackathon part, what are the use cases? Are you already looking for the one part into the hackathon, and when is that?
You asking about the $1 million challenge or in general hackathon?
Will the hackathon is during those 4 days or before the event will be ready and then?
Yeah, it's before the event. And the tracks that I mentioned, agri-tech, there is no specific problem statement where actually it's an open challenge.
Okay.
So as long as it's fintech related and you have an idea or a solution, you can participate in the challenge, and a panel of judges will decide based on the readiness and the innovativeness of the idea, and then they get selected for
So the theme is on the website already kind of.
Yeah. It's a more broader theme, there's no specific problem statement.
Yeah, so the target group is tested rather than the use group. And there are 2-3 good hackathon guys who do regularly on that. Probably I have to encourage them to participate. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
So my question is on this is an initiative where you collect these ideas.
No, there are a number of institutions already part of the state, right? So this the whole idea is to grow the talent pool as well as get the employment and growth going in the state. And that's the object of the initiative. So there are across the state there are about 200 plus engineering colleges. The state universities, Andhra University, Geethams, and we also have now IIMs and IITs being set up in the new state. So it's all academic institutions under one umbrella. So we work with all of them. We have an integrated database of all universities and programs that they have and the students that are graduating. And then we are trying to connect them to the industry, to different programs like hackathons. We do recruiting drives for them. We partner with organizations, and for large organizations like Infosys and Wipro, we do Infosys specific hackathon or a recruitment drive where we can reach out to the appropriate student pool and have them assemble in one place.
I'll reach out. There are specific